This is an SM Media production. Hi, folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the SM Media Pro Wrestling Show. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. We're obviously going to look back on the big event over the weekend. Extreme Rules is in the bag, and it's a fascinating show to talk about. There's a lot to get through here, and I'm delighted to welcome this week's special guest. A pleasure to welcome Brent Carter on the show. Brent, thanks for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, cheers for having me. Happy to be here.
It's an interesting show we're going to talk about here. Not a lot happened, very quiet. Not a lot of news coming out of it. It's been very quiet.
A bit of a B show. It's fine. Yeah, we'll
Aye.
try and make some content out of it, I suppose.
Yeah, we are obviously exaggerating there. There's a lot to get through, and there's a lot of stuff that I think we'll debate about back and forward over the course of the next few minutes. But let's just start it. Let's do a review of the show. It was a fascinating show from top to bottom. If I was to give you a grade of A to F, Brent, how would you rank the event as a whole?
Whole event, I'd give maybe like a B.
Right.
But if you're talking like the last 10 minutes of the event, then like A. But
yeah,
I think that
we'll get to that.
that saved it. There was a few wee bits and pieces I wasn't too keen on, but like overall, it was a really strong show, I thought.
I really enjoyed this as a whole show. I think there's a couple of matches we'll talk about that certainly didn't hit the heights we thought, but there are a few really good matches in here. Maybe kind of over the course, I think 1 hour, the first hour was great. Second hour was maybe a bit dodgy, but the third hour kind of rescued it from to make it. I would agree a B.
Yeah.
I would say a high B. I think there was
Definitely.
I think if the SmackDown women's match was just a tiny bit better, it would have been a great show. And I'm not even going to give the. I'm not going to criticise the Edge and Finn Balor match the kind of way I want to, because I thought it was a great match. I thought it was a real great story. I think it was overbooked a wee bit, but we'll get into that throughout the next few minutes.
Yeah, I've got a few notes that I made on that one as well.
Yeah. Let's start with the opening match, the Brawling Brutes versus Imperium, a good old-fashioned Donnybrook. We are both Scottish. We know what a Donnybrook is. We've seen them many times. As a whole, I thought this was the match of the night. I thought it was chaotic. I love this Sheamus and Gunther feud. I think this takes it to a new height. I think the right team went over. I was happy with the Brawling Brutes winning. I thought it was done the right way. It was chaotic in the best possible way, and I think it was I just thought I really enjoyed it from start to finish. It was one of those matches that you would probably see in a pub where both of us live, and you would probably do you know what I mean? It was one of those matches that you would probably see, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good match.
I think I've been involved in a few.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd agree. It was my match of the night as well. I'm absolutely loving the whole Brawling Brutes thing. I didn't think I was going to at first.
Yeah.
Like the whole Pete Dunne getting changed to Butch and stuff like that. I was a bit like, but it's totally won me over. I think it's like one of the best things WWE are doing right now, and especially with that like Imperium feud. Like I'm really glad they brought up Giovanni Vinci so they could do the whole like 6-man aspect of it. I think that's really it's brought a like really interesting sort of dynamic to it now, where like there's loads of different, you can have like tag matches, you've got the like Sheamus and Gunther singles and stuff, and then this 6-man, which I thought was like that was the match I enjoyed the most on the whole show. Which was it's a good way to open it, but then I think matches later on in the card suffered with how good that was. But no, I that was I'd agree with you.
Match and I've been so impressed recently with Sheamus, just how he seems to. He's a veteran. He's been a bit off and on over the past like few years or so. He's been kind of difficult to get used to, but when he's obviously seeing something in Gunther, but he maybe sees himself. So he's obviously working and he's working with likes of Butch and Ridge Holland to elevate them, and he's elevating Gunther as well. And Gunther, apart from the name, I think he's taken to the main roster like a duck to water.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not too, as far as like some of the name changes, there are some name changes that I cannot get behind. That one it's not too bad for me considering like what other things have been, but
it certainly made news.
Yeah. Like I understand why they did it, but I just feel like
absolutely.
if they were going to do it, they should have just done it from the start. Like I don't get the whole letting them keep their name up until a point and then changing it when they've already got like a bit of a history in WWE, already. Like I don't understand that aspect of it so much. Like just if you sign them, just change their name straight away if you need to.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. But
yeah,
no, really good match to open the show. The next one is obviously Liv Morgan defending her SmackDown Women's title against Ronda Rousey.
yes.
Extreme Rules match. That's a tough one because I actually was into this. I thought the right person won again. I thought there was a lot of botches, for lack of a better term, that went on in this match that I think ruined it. I don't understand why the babyface in the match is going down to the ring with a baseball bat, and the heel is taking it off of her, and it was a bit of a weird match. Like I don't think, you'll know better than me. It's difficult to say what the issue was with it, but there was an issue. Like it just felt as if something didn't click, and we'll get into the finish in a second. But as a whole, I thought both superstars put in a great match. They put in a great performance, but they just didn't click for one way or another.
Yeah, it's like I feel like I don't know if you saw, there was a SmackDown like a couple of weeks ago where Liv had a match. I think it was Lacey Evans she had, but then when the match, like she started pulling out like tables and stuff like that, and you see like she could have an Extreme Rules match. I don't think they gel together quite well, her and Ronda. I got into the match eventually, but the start of it really annoyed me with Liv meant to be the face, but straight away going for a weapon, Ronda getting rid of it, and then instead of just being like, aye, all right, because like, yeah, fair enough, Extreme Rules, it's the gimmick, but then being like, no, I still need to go and try and get this, but like I can't, like I know I can't beat you without like some sort of advantage. It's a bit, I don't know, I didn't understand it, but then from the way it's ended and like the stuff they've put out on social media will have just, I don't know if like this is the start of a turn maybe, which like if it is, it still didn't need to happen in the match. Like do it after, because if you start doing it that early, like, who are you meant to cheer for?
They're clearly
I
going
don't know.
somewhere. They're clearly going somewhere with Liv Morgan, because obviously they did the thing with her laughing, and then I think there was backstage photos of her like, sitting down, just looking very dark. So I think there's something with there. Ronda Rousey, from that perspective, I think this is the sort of. I mean, she should be beating Liv. She should, from a storyline perspective, she should be winning matches like this in dominant fashion. It's that thing as well. Her heel mannerisms throughout the match were great. See when she came down at the start of the entrance, she was kind of mimicking the crying mannerism. I really like things like that, because I think the problem with Ronda Rousey is that she, as a heel persona, she's natural at it.
Yeah.
Does she need a Paul Heyman, for example? I'm not saying Paul Heyman's maybe the guy to do it, but I don't know if he would do it. But she needs somebody there. She needs to just stand there and look great and do the mannerisms without actually talking, because I think you've got a potential superstar heel. She's a box office attraction, probably the biggest box office attraction in the division. Keep her away from Charlotte Flair. I'm not too fussed about her going with Becky Lynch. I think that's probably the plan going forward. Keep her away from Charlotte, and you've got two really good heels in different ways. But Ronda, I think this was her night this was the night we kind of wanted to see her put in a performance, and she did, despite what happened, how the match went. I thought coming out of it, I says Ronda's going to be the champion going into WrestleMania. They're not going to take the belt off her right now.
Yeah, and I don't think they need to. Like, I think with her now being like definite, they keep doing like shades of grey with her every once in a while, which like because like when she's a heel, she's a good heel. So then like you'll get some folk that just cheer that. So then they try and like make it a bit, but no, like I think now that she's coming in her own as like an actual full blown here, and they're like going with it, I think it's got a lot of potential. I think especially now that this thing we live seems to be a bit finished, and she can like go on to something else. Is I think like both of them separately, I really like both of their work. I just don't think they gel together quite well. I was the same with their match at SummerSlam. I wasn't that into it. It seemed really sort of clunky, like the two contrasting styles didn't quite gel together as well as they should have. So like I'm looking forward to see like what comes next for like both of them, because I like what both of them are doing, but I didn't like this feud.
The next match on the card is an interesting one because I was really looking forward to this. I think this is one of the very few storylines in this card that was really good going in, and it just didn't hit the heights for me. Karrion Kross, Drew McIntyre, strap match. It was a Donnybrook. Let's say it was no better term for it. I enjoyed it to a degree. I thought it was. Why did they have them fight for so long before the bell? Why did they not just in fact? I just didn't get this at all. I was like, why did Scarlett need, I know Scarlett's there, obviously, but it was just a weird, it didn't hit the heights I thought it would.
Yeah, I think for it being their first match, I don't think it needed a gimmick, like build to a gimmick, maybe. Yeah. I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed the match, but I think you having a pay-per-view called Extreme Rules, like fair enough, you'll want like a bunch of gimmick matches. I don't think they all need to be. And I think last year only one or two were, which suffered because it was like, well, what's the point of the show? But then I think this one was a bit like too much. It was a bit overbooked with the gimmicks. Like I can understand from a storyline perspective why they did it with the whole like Karrion sort of screwing Drew over and him. Yeah, I got it, but I didn't think it needed it, and I think it maybe like suffered because of it. Wasn't a bad match by any means, but I think with especially with like the Donnybrook match earlier in the show and how good that was.
Yeah, it was a constant kind of thing. Like this was vicious, but it wasn't that you could have sat for 5 minutes and probably sat on your phone and you wouldn't have missed much.
Yeah,
and that's not a knock on the two performers, but it just felt like there was something missing. And I have bought into this rivalry in recent weeks. I thought Karrion Kross come back. I love that pairing of Karrion Kross and Scarlett. I think it just blends so well. The thing that got me with Drew is that when is Drew now going to? Because I think the right guy won. I think you had to give Kross the win. He had to have that big win in his first pay-per-view. What do you do with Drew now? Do you have him go against Kross again? Because Kross needs you can't beat Kross at the moment because you need to build him up because he's had to recover from that horrendous main roster run before he got released. So bringing him back and booking him the way they can't then have him lose to Drew in the next match. He has to have a couple of months before going into something big at WrestleMania. I have a perfect plan that I'm going to announce a few weeks from now when we kind of get to WrestleMania season, what I want them to do with Karrion Kross. But right now, I don't know what you do with both of them.
I think they're gonna like keep pushing Karrion because like the whole like Karrion made a point when he came in that he's going for like the Universal title, but I think he still needs a way to go. So I feel like I'm not sure what they'll do with that. With Drew, I'm pretty certain they'll lean on what happened at Clash at the Castle with like Solo interfering because they'll need to come up with like 5 or 6 faces because if the plan going into Survivor Series is War Games, then I feel like it's certain that like it's going to be the Bloodline against a team of like whoever you get to go against them, and I feel like you'll need someone like Drew in a spot like that. But yeah, carrying, I have no clue. Was looking at the SmackDown roster, like babyface, but it's a bit. I'm not sure where you go from like Drew that isn't a bit of a step down.
I think it's kind of an interesting one what to do with them. But, I mean, there's two guys. I can see them obviously going back to Drew, maybe getting in with the bloodline later on, but we'll maybe touch on that towards the next few minutes. But the next match I thoroughly enjoyed, and I thought it'd get better as the match went on. Bianca Belair against Bayley. Bianca Belair obviously retained the title in the ladder match. I really enjoyed this. I thought at the start it was slow to get going, but once it got going, Bayley is so good. Just having her back, she's so good at playing a heel. Belair, I think, is just amazing at what she does as well. And those two together, it clicked. And it was a really enjoyable match. You obviously had Sky and Dakota Kai as well. They're just wreaking havoc. I thought we might have saw Sasha Banks and Naomi, but we didn't. But this was good. I thought this was a good match. I really enjoyed it.
I did, I was there was a wee bit that was a bit like, you had Dakota and Io come down, and then no one came out to like equalize it, and then Bayley kind of had been going through a ladder match. Bianca, had been going through a ladder match with Bayley. Then these two fresh folk come out, and she still manages to like overpower all three. I thought that was a bit. But then with, I think they're doing a thing where Alexa and Asuka are injured just now. So
that's right.
But when before the match, when it showed that they had Nikita Lyons from NXT in the crowd, right, I was like, all right, cool, she'll jump over and then it all starts it. But the face in a match that's already been getting beat up with like a ladder, still being able to, that bit was a bit iffy with me. But like otherwise, I really enjoyed it, and I think I'm glad Bianca retained to see where it goes now. I
thought Bayley was going over. The injury angle, as you say, I thought was when Sky and Kai came out, I was like, right, they're going with Bayley. Then this will be the kind of, and that would have been fine. I wouldn't have had an issue with that. But the fact Bianca won, I'm quite happy with as well. That's one of those matches where I don't think there was a bad winner. I think anybody won would have been fine with it. But a thoroughly enjoyable match. The next match is a bit of a head. You're probably going to have a bit of a sore head just going through this, but it was wild. There was a lot going on in this match. Edge versus Finn Balor in an I Quit match. I'm going to kind of give the floor to you because I know you have some notes, but once the kind of conclusion I'll have with this, if this isn't heading into War Games, I don't know what they're doing, because that seems to be exactly where they're going with this.
See, when it got announced it was an I Quit match, in my head, I was like, I think the finish is going to be this, and I really hope it's not. And it was. So you had Finn and Edge fighting throughout the match, and then Judgment Day come out, which you knew was going to happen. Ray coming out, I was a bit surprised on. I didn't expect that. Dominic beating up his dad, I was all for. Absolutely loved watching that. But then when Rhea got in, I was like, all right, I know where this is going.
And you could kind of see Beth in the crowd as well.
Yeah.
They kind of tried a couple of times, they missed her. Like they kind of showed her, but then straight away, once they to the camera got her, they moved away.
Yeah.
And once as you say, once that, you know where it's going.
It's annoying because like I feel like that finish is overdone with I Quit matches where the person quits because they don't want someone else. Like the last I Quit match that WWE did that I remember was the Hell in a Cell I Quit match where it was like Roman against Jay, and it was the same where I think either Jay quit because he didn't want Jimmy to get beat up.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But then also, it's not even the only time that finish has been on the WWE network within the last like 4 months.
Yeah.
Because Progress did it not that long ago when their I Quit match with Spike Trivet and Cara Noir. It was the exact same where like Spike was going to beat up Kara's wife. If the ending was any different, then I'd have loved it. But I feel like that ending to an I Quit match is just overdone now. I can't remember the last I Quit match I've seen where someone just genuinely quit.
Mm.
And
I enjoyed it. It was one of those matches where I felt as if there was so much going on, it was hard to really kind of take it all in. But as I've said before in this show, I love Rhea Ripley. To a point where I think she's the best. She's the best thing about the Judgment Day. I think the Judgment Day, when she came into the Judgment Day, I was like, that's exactly the role for her. Now she's got this weird thing with Dominic that I actually quite enjoy as well.
I love it.
But Rhea Ripley versus Beth Phoenix, I'm quite happy with that. And I certainly don't think Beth would mind putting Rhea over, because you could push Rhea to the moon and have her beat Bianca, but that also takes away from, she's more than capable of interacting with the guys, and you saw recently she's capable of producing a good storyline, and keep her. I'm quite happy with that, and if it's War Games, I'm fine. I imagine it's going to be Edge, AJ, Ray, and Beth against the Judgment Day, and I think that's fit. I'm not an overall issue with that, and both females can interact with the males, and it's fine.
I could see that becoming a possibility, but I'm sure it's been announced that they're having one males War Games and one females War Games. So I don't know how. Like, I'd be fine with it if it would just being like two War Games matches, like one on Raw where it's like Judgment Day and like Team Babyface, and then a SmackDown one where it's the Bloodline. I think it makes more sense than that, because I don't think doing one with like Damage Control, I can't see anyone else teaming with it. I don't know how that would work.
That's kind of the thing.
So I'm not sure, but like I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going to go from here. And I feel like if that finish hadn't been like kind of overdone, I'd have really enjoyed it, because storyline wise, it all made loads of sense, and I feel like I should have liked it, but I feel like it's sort of being fed to you too much whenever they do an I Quit match. That's fish, which is unfortunate, because otherwise, like, I love it when it becomes a bit of like a cluster with like loads of drama going on, you can't quite keep up with it. But no, I thought it was a really good match otherwise. I still enjoyed it. I was just a bit disappointed with how it finished.
Yeah, that was kind of my thing too. But the final match of the night, I thoroughly enjoyed. I thought it's between this and the opener for the match of the night. But the fight pit between Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins, obviously a real storyline going into it. I thought it's been well done. Adding Daniel Cormier into the main event as the official, I thought was setting something up. I thought there was going to be something in that, but I was happy with the way this went. I thought Matt Riddle was obviously very good at MMA. You can see that his probably career in MMA didn't hit the heights it would, but he's capable of producing some really good stuff. And Rollins is the perfect guy to balance that with. So I thought that was good. This was really good. And what was your thoughts on it? Did you enjoy this match the way I did?
I did. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about Daniel Cormier as the referee. Like, I thought it was a good choice, but I didn't know how he would be. But then that like went within the first 5 minutes.
And before any further, the fight pit looks. See when you actually see it. I know we've seen it in NXT, but see when you actually, it looks brilliant.
Yeah,
that
I want to wrestle in one so bad. It looks so good. Yeah, I wasn't sure about Daniel Cormier, but then when he was like, when folk were kind of pushing him away and him being like, "No, look, I'm the ref," like that. It's like, yes, chef's kiss. Because I hate when you've got like a like special referee, but then they just act like a normal referee, including like selling for 20 minutes by getting bumped once. I don't know what it is about that striped shirt that just takes away all your powers. But no, I thought he enhanced the match. He didn't like he didn't like steal focus, but the bits that he like got himself involved in, I feel like he really added to it. The match itself was really good. That senton off the top, made me sick in my throat a little bit watching it. Because I do sentons, and that just did not look tasty. But I thought it was I thought that was good. I thought that was going to be the finish. But I thought like how they transitioned from that to the finish with the triangle choke. Rollins trying to get out of it by doing power bombs, but then just not managing and having a tap. I thought like it was really well put together. I thought it kind of suffered a bit from the crowd knowing what was going to happen after the match, but not knowing it was going to happen after the match.
This is where I struggled with it, because I thought we knew something was going to happen, and we'll maybe touch on it. We'll maybe touch on it later. We'll see. Yeah, but the thing with it is that I was just waiting. I was waiting on something to happen, and throughout this match, I was thinking, there's something's. What happened at the end, I did not see coming that way. And it was playing in my head throughout this match. I was like, is something going to happen? Are we going to see what we think we're going to see?
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where it didn't make the match any worse. I thought the match was brilliant, and I thought the way it ended was brilliant. The right guy won.
I'd agree. I don't think it made the match any worse, but I think there was about 20,000 other people thinking the same way as you watching it. And so because of that, and then like the way they were chanting at the start, like I thought it initially started to suffer because of it, because they were just wanting this next thing to happen. But I think the way the match went, they managed to quickly like get everyone invested in it. Like initially when I was watching it, I was like, oh God, no, because I thought it wasn't likely for anything to happen during this match. If it was going to happen, it would happen after the match.
See, I thought the opposite.
Because I was going into it thinking, well, Riddle needs to win, but I don't think he needs to win this way. So, and then I thought if it was going to happen, if anyone was going to get attacked, I thought it would be Riddle after winning the match because of who he's best pals with. I thought that would be how they tied it in. But I thought...
Yeah, there you go. I didn't even think of that.
See, that was my thinking. But then by the end of it, when like the way the match went, I hadn't forgot, but it was like at the total back of my mind.
And that's where it proceeded. See when the match ended, I was fine with it. I was thinking, all right, okay. But then you thought, there's something going to happen. But Daniel Cormier, I wonder if there's something going to happen there going forward. Maybe we're recording this just before Raw. Maybe we might see something happen. But a really enjoyable pay-per-view, and the pay-per-view ended with Daniel Cormier and Matt Riddle in the entrance ramp, and we'll move on to the next segment. I'm only joking.
You did a nice wee fist bump. It was nice.
Yeah, and good way to send the show ended and the telly went off, but if you turned the telly off, you were very silly, because the White Rabbit, the fascination that we've all had for a few weeks, did turn out to be exactly who we thought it was, but it was... I mean... Where do we even start with this? I mean,
so good.
It was everything we wanted and more, because you have more questions than answers, even with the reveal, because you're like, right, are we going to see the Wyatt Six? What is that? What is the Firefly Funhouse done? We, of course, mean that Bray Wyatt is back in the WWE. He returned at the end of Extreme Rules. I want to kind of the way it happened. If you've not seen it, then please check it out. It's on YouTube. It's on TikTok. I've watched it probably 40, 50 times since it happened. I imagine you're the same, Brent.
Yeah.
It started with obviously the lights going off, and Michael Cole had a great night, and this was the first time in a while where I thought Michael Cole's been excellent tonight. He said he was still on the air, obviously knowing that was good work. I really enjoyed that. And we saw the spotlights. The whole world in his hands was obviously playing over the ring as well. we began to see spotlights of the puppets from the Firefly Funhouse. We saw Mercy the Buzzard. We saw is it Abby the Witch?
Abby the Witch.
Yeah, and then we saw the Fiend.
Huskus.
Yeah, Huskus the Pig. Yeah, we saw everything.
That big Ramblin' the Rabbit, how scary did that look?
And I thought that at first. I was like, right. Once you heard the whole world in his hands, you knew who it was. But that was brilliant. That was because we were so invested in the music, and then we saw these puppets. We're like, right, okay, we're waiting on something happening. I thought when the Fiend, I kind of freaked out a bit because I thought the Fiend was Wyatt. So I was kind of thinking, right, that's it. We've Fiend's here. It's going to be the Fiend again because I enjoyed the Fiend. I thought it kind of ended up a bit of a shambles, but we then saw the door open and the Firefly Funhouse. Now, there's a bit of ingenious here as well, and I'll get your thoughts on it because the Firefly Funhouse hasn't been seen for a year and a half. It's going to be the way it is, and then we saw the masked man with a lantern, and it was Bray Wyatt, and it was. Cody's pop this year was incredible, and obviously was in a bigger venue, but this was up there. Give us your thoughts on it because it was unbelievable. It was it was a really intriguing way to end the show, but what a reveal and what we all thought it was going to be Wyatt, but now we know it was a great reveal. It just worked out so well.
Yeah, so I stayed up to watch it live, and so. What started at 1, it's like 3 hours long, got to like 4. As the fight pit was like ending, I was like, all right, I'll watch this and then like I'll have a drink and go to bed. And by the end of it, I had to like sit up, I had to watch a film to like rewind from it. I was so amped. No, I think I don't think anyone does it quite like the way Bray Wyatt does.
No.
It's so it's like really, it's great to watch, but it's also like frustrating being like, how do you have so many good ideas like this? I struggle to think of a promo for like a regular match, and you're like coming up with supernatural things. Like you've been laying the backstory for something else you were going to do like 5 years ago, and there's Easter eggs everywhere. No, when the singing started playing, I thought, but then the spotlights of like the different Firefly Funhouse puppets as like real life humans in the crowd. I thought that was like a really great touch. Some of them looked terrifying, like the Huskus looked like, I don't know, and the rabbit as well.
What was the thing in the table?
So that was the Fiend's burnt face from when Randy Orton set him on fire.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was like the burnt mask. But that like the way
Cole sold that was amazing.
Yeah, the way Cole and like Corey Graves as well. It's like it was so good. Like everything's so good. And I waited 3 hours for it. Like I stayed up for that, and it was all worth it. Like the show was worth it as well. But like that's why
that's what we're taking.
That's what we all But then like I don't know, I had so many questions going into it, and then when it finished, I had more, and I felt like nothing had been answered. Like what's that upside down moth thing? Like it was so good.
Yeah, and it's the thing as well is that we know it's going to take a while for us to really kind of get our heads around what's going on here. But the one thing with Wyatt that I noticed, and I don't know if you'll agree or disagree, he looked a bit kind of taken aback with just how big the pop was. And I know he's really good at keeping the character and things like that, but you could see he was so invested in it. It was, and that shows you just, I think, the personal journey that he has went on recently to come back to now have a bit. I imagine he will have a bit more control in what he wants to do. They've hired the guy from Marvel to be kind of long-term creative. That's not a coincidence that Bray Wyatt's back and that guy's there. You're going to see more, because I think the Fiend, the problem they had with the Fiend is that Wyatt obviously wanted to do his own thing. but you had maybe Vince McMahon maybe not understanding what the Fiend was and trying to make it his own. And as much as we respect Vince McMahon, that's maybe not the right thing for Vince at that point. And that was maybe playing a factor. The last time we saw the Fiend was obviously at WrestleMania, and that turned into a bit of a shambles. And I remember even saying to my partner, who's not into wrestling at all, I said, "What are they doing with him?" And you look at it now and you think he still has the crowd on his side. The crowd loved it. We all loved it. We knew the White Rabbit, even the White Rabbit playing the song in the commercial break. We were all so invested, even though we hadn't seen it in the TV. We were just desperate for this to work, and by God,
I don't know if you were the same, but like I was like doing all the like QR code things and like it's just I'm so like frustrated with how good it is. It's infuriatingly good. I don't know if you saw it, did you I liked how there was lots of there was like lots of little like Easter eggs for Brody.
Yeah, I did actually. I saw that kind of kicking about, and now it kind of makes sense that.
Yeah,
and that's the thing with Wyatt.
I got it while watching it with like the door, but I didn't realize that whoever it was that was Abby the Witch under the veil, they were wearing his Bludgeon Brothers mask.
Oh, I didn't know that. I haven't seen that. Yeah, there you go. That's and that's There's a bit of there's a fantastic bit about that, and they're just like he's such a good. He's probably one of the very few guys in there who have a forward plan of where they want to be, and just if it's allowed to work, I think it will flourish. The one thing I will say, and this is if Triple H is watching, keep him away from the title. He does not need it. Keep him, let him do his own thing, because you've got so much you can do. Keep him away where he could potentially get squashed by a Goldberg or a Roman Reigns. Just let him do what he wants. Just not let him do what he wants, because you always have to. You need to let everybody do what they want in that regard. But let him be his own thing. Just do. He's back. He probably maybe didn't want to come back until he saw who was taking over. Just let him be happy. Let him do what he wants.
Yeah, I think it was like, if you look at like the Undertaker, at no point did he ever need to win the title.
No.
When it made sense for him to do so, like they did it, but like, yeah, I'd agree. Just like do the sort of long-term storytelling with him first, and then if it gets to a point where it makes sense, like don't just throw him in there because he's the hottest thing just now. Like you don't need to do that. Also, if Triple H is watching, book me. I'm higher. Hello. But yeah, no, I'd agree with that as well.
But really interesting reveal, and Bray Wyatt will probably be, I hope, will be at Raw, and we'll maybe review that during the week. But yeah, fantastic show, Extreme Rules. We loved it from start to finish. But we'll get to talking a bit about yourself, Brent, and your career in the business so far. Just going with what we spoke about for a long time. You are clearly a fan. How did it come about? When did wrestling first become a thing?
So the way I tell it, the first time I ever saw wrestling, I burst out crying because I didn't want to watch it because it was on a Saturday night and I wanted to watch Gladiators. But I was staying at a friend's house because my mum was going out. I was getting babysit. And so they had to phone my mum and be like, he's not calming down. And she had to promise to like tape Gladiators for me. So then I calmed down and I watched wrestling. So I would have been about 3 or 4. Something like that. Like the first people I remember seeing on the TV were like the Beverly Brothers, which shows you like how old I am and how bad it was. But I got into it. But I think so. I really got into it when I was like about 9 or 10. Just like watched it when I was younger, but it was hard to keep up because like we didn't have Sky or anything like that. Like I'd get videotape sometimes, but I kind of just like forgot about it. But then you got like the Attitude Era and everything like that, so that everyone at school was talking about it. So then when I started watching it again, that was around about it. I got like really into it. Um, for me, like at that age, I used it sort of like escapism for
Yeah.
me. Because like stuff at home with me wasn't great. Like it was a bit traumatic at the most of the time. So like I would just sit and watch wrestling, and that would be like my wee escape thing. And tiny wee Brent would be like, "Oh, I wish I was big like them," and then nothing bad would happen to me. And now I'm big like them, and nothing bad. No, it's bad things still happen, but at least I'm a bit bigger. But yeah, so about 99, 2000 was when I got really into it, and like I've not stopped watching
Yeah.
since, and like I watch everything. Like I don't know if you see what I mean. There's like 3 bookshelves. It's just like videos,
I noticed that,
DVDs. Yeah, that's all just wrestling stuff. And that's because I'm not allowed to keep it in the living room.
yeah.
I tried, but it's not allowed. So gets kept in this little office. Uh, yeah, so I like that's been what I'm like 32 now, so like
It's a good 20 years since 2000.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's.
like over 20 years.
Mhm.
Um,
And getting into like obviously your career starting as well. Like, how did training come about? And do you remember your kind of first matches?
yeah, so I started at GPWA. I started
Right.
there for a wee bit. It was like 8 weeks I was there in total, but like traveling to Glasgow from Perth every week
Mhm.
was um not the best like financial wise.
Mhm.
And also it just yeah, so trained there a wee bit during like had like an induction period. Um got asked to like come back and train more, but I couldn't commit to it at the time.
Mhm.
I had like a lot of like personal stuff going on as well. And eventually I moved to Fife in 2019, early 2019. And that same like during that same year, FPWA got announced,
Yeah.
with Andy Wild being like head trainer.
Mhm.
So as soon as like that was announced, I was like, oh, that's close to where we are. So signed up and been there since like day one. I've since moved back to Perth because you can never escape Perth for some reason. Like you try and leave, but you just get sort of dragged back in. Um, but no, I've been there since like first day. Um, it's been like life changing,
Mhm.
really. It's like helped me a lot, like especially like mental health wise.
Yeah.
It's been really great. I've mentioned that a few times to Andy and everyone. Like I don't think they like when you go to like open a school and start training people, like you don't really realize it's going to have that much of an effect as
Mhm.
well. Like you just sort of think, oh, I'll train people. Like it'll be a good way to like get some folk ready for this. And you don't realize just that it's a lot more to
Yeah.
like certain people. So yeah, that training's been tough but good. So that's been what 2019. Like when COVID happened, that
Mhm.
everyone sort of most schools sort of like took a back seat, but like FPWA, Andy managed to get it so that we had a lot of video seminars. Like we
Yeah.
had sort of like live calls with like different wrestlers who would come in, speak for a bit, they'd answer questions. Like we had Nick Aldis while he was still NWA world champion.
Mhm.
We had like some guys signed to NXT UK or to WWE. We've had like AEW. We had like a big mix of people, and so that wasn't open just to us. Like other students, while they couldn't train, they were able to join in as well. And then since everything started back up again, it's all kind of been a bit like full speed ahead. Debuted debuted December last year, so not been long at all. But yeah, it's been good. Had a few shows. I've got another show coming up this Friday, which will be fun. I'm in a rumble. I love a rumble.
Nice.
Been in one before, but like, yeah, be good. That's for FCW, which is good because it means I'm actually getting to wrestle like in my hometown, which was like top on my list of goals of things I wanted to achieve, was wrestle in Perth so that like friends and family could see. So that's getting to happen this week, which I'm buzzing about.
And then obviously with COVID and things like that, like you said obviously about December 2019 you started obviously with a wee thing called coronavirus. It came after that. How difficult was that? Like when you make that kind of big decision to go and do something you've always wanted to do, to have that kind of roadblock in your way, how difficult is it to stay motivated during that period?
Very. I think if we had taken a break at any point, and then during the pandemic, Andy said, "Oh, I'm going to start doing these things online," then I don't know how well I'd have been able to like stick with it. But it was a case of like training was due to happen the day of when we all got told we weren't allowed to like mix, and like when everything initially shut down. So then Andy was like, all right, well, everyone was meant to train today, so I'll do it. So we're doing something over like Facebook Live. Yeah, it started off as Facebook Live and then progressed to like Zoom. But he did it so that we're still doing it that day, so we weren't missing anything because we didn't know how long things were going to stop. And then as like the weeks went on, we realized it was going to be a more permanent thing. But at like no point did we really take a break, which was good for staying motivated. But I think without that, I don't know how. I think knowing the way like I am and how my brain works, I think I would have personally struggled to like stay motivated during it and then get back into it. So luckily didn't have that issue. But yeah, I felt bad for like, I know there's some people that I know that were training, stopped during COVID and still haven't came back to it. And I feel quite bad for them because I know that like had COVID not happened, they'd probably be a lot further on and be like on shows now and stuff like that. So I'm really glad I'm not in that position. Yeah. So I think it definitely could have been worse. I'm lucky the way things went.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going forward as well, like you mentioned there about FPWA and the beginning to do shows and things like that. You see, we've spoke to a lot of people about just how much that's grown as well. Like for you, kind of starting at this early stage, what's your kind of hopes and expectations? Like, where do you want to be in a year's time and kind of 2 years' time? What's your kind of overall ambitions in wrestling?
So I made a list like before. I'm terrible at making lists. Like I'll make lists. Like I'll make a different list a week for different stuff. It just helps me like process things. But like I made a list before even starting training, at least stuff I'd want to achieve through training. I managed to like tick a lot of it off already. And like my first main goal was to be able to wrestle here in Perth. I'm getting to do that this week, luckily. So like within a year, I'd want to be on shows more regularly, which I think I'm getting in a position where that's starting to happen. But there's a lot of really talented people just now on the scene. So I think it's hard to get a foot in the door. But then once you've got a foot in the door, if you manage to like prove yourself, then you'll start to be booked more consistently. It's trying to like get that foot in the door initially. I really like long term. I really want to travel Europe just for wrestling. I think there's lots of kind of not spoken about enough. I think it's quite underestimated just how like big the European scene is for wrestling. That's one of like my main. I want to like travel just to wrestle really. Like I'd like to go to places like Japan, not Mexico, because I know that I'll really struggle with that because like here we all work the left and then in Mexico they work the right. You like need to flip things when I'm disorientated enough as it is. Try to do that, I would struggle. But yeah, like mostly just travel. I feel like I'm quite a bit a ways from if I was ever going to be signed to the likes of like WWE or AEW, if that would ever be a possibility. But for like just now, just sort of like stay consistent, keep making a name for myself, like on the shows I'm on, like on social media, and then hopefully get to a point where places elsewhere, when they're looking to like bring people in from another country, look at the likes of me. That's like sort of the current way I'm focused.
And obviously as well, kind of building a rapport with the crowd. How important is that? Because we ask everybody this, like there's some like a footballer, a golfer, for example, they don't care about the crowd. Not a lot of the times they'll take it into account, but they'll not. It's not a total build on their character. And wrestling, it absolutely is. How important is that? How important have you found that, especially coming back in, working venues with crowds? How important is it to establish a rapport, positive or negative, in a quick way?
I think quite positive. Like I've been quite lucky because the shows that I've been on so far, all of them have been family friendly shows. So it's a lot easier to get like the kids involved. And then once you get the kids involved, then you can sort of get the parents involved through the kids. So like the first shows we had initially in December last year, they were held in the training school. So we had like kids there, and I was a face on that show, so I managed to like get the kids like cheering for me and stuff like that. And then when you do that, the mums are like, "Oh, good, they're getting," so they're on your side as well. Dads are trickier, because dads like they'll sit there and be like, nah, I know this is fake. So you need to like try and do something to be like, oh well, I know this is fake, but that looked real, or like get them a bit on site. Like they can be trickier. And I've not worked like an adults only show yet, so I don't know how I would work with that. And then the last show that I was on, which was like in a studio in Glenrothes, that was family friendly as well, but I was heel.
Right.
And the way they had the show was they had like chairs on three sides of the ring, and then on the other side there was just mats that kids could just sit on, and they all had these like giant inflatable hammers. So I'm just like shouting abuse at them, and they're like whacking me during the match, and I'm trying to get it so that I can win by DQ because I'm being attacked by someone outside. Like, ref, look, I'm being attacked by a wet, like stuff like that. It's a lot easier to get the crowd involved if it's a sort of laid back, family friendly environment, and I've started to get used to that. I look forward to when I get booked on a show where there's less kids and I need to try and work harder to get people engaged. I think I'd like manage it, but I've not had the opportunity to do it yet. But like I quite like character work.
Yeah.
So that's just like an opportunity for me to like try things out and see what I can get to like either get folk on side or to get them like hurling abuse at me, which I love.
Absolutely. Right, I'm going to put you in the spot to close the show with the quick fire round. Are you ready to be quizzed quick fire?
I will do my best. Yeah.
Right, let's do it. The favourite match of your career so far?
I've got two. My first match that I had was a match me against a boy called John Kerr, who I don't think gets mentioned anywhere near enough for the Scottish scene because he's insanely talented. And then more recently, I was in a rumble where I was the third person out and then the last one eliminated. So like I had a big chunk of like time in the rumble, so I was having to try and like stay active throughout the whole thing with like new people coming out. And I got really good feedback from a lot of the people that were in the crowd. Like there was folk that run companies were invited to the show. And a lot of the people that were there gave me good feedback for how everything went on that. So if we're like, I'd say singles matches would be that match with John Kerr, but I think the most fun I've had in a match was that Rumble.
Brilliant. Next question. This is kind of split into two: dream opponent realistically and dream opponent fantasy.
Dream opponent realistically is Gene Money.
Okay.
I've been a fan of him for God knows how long. But like I think I'd really enjoy doing a match where it's like guy that does comedy stuff against the guy that's trying to like act all serious, but like isn't like I'm not like scared for folks to like take the piss out of me if I'm a heel because it makes it so like I think that dynamic like I would love to have that match. That's been like one of my like fantasy matches for a long time. Like dream kind of unrealistic. I don't know. Kevin Owens.
Okay.
I think. Yeah. I think there's a lot of similarities there, so I think that would be good.
Very good. 3 people in the Scottish scene you would start a faction with.
So there's someone I train with, who they're 15 years old, and if I wasn't already tag teaming with them, I'd be raging anytime I saw them because they're too good. But I could look at them now and I'm like, oh, it's fine, he's my tag partner. They're called Lexi Kimbo. They wrestle in drag. We have like a good thing going where it's like they're in drag and they'll be like all catty and like shout abuse at whoever they're fighting. And then I'll just be in the middle and be like, you can't touch him. You need to go through me to touch him and I'll batter you. So them definitely. Scottish scene. I might cheat a bit and go UK scene rather. I'd throw in Sam Gradwell now that he's been released. If he's free and would like to join us, that would be nice. Did a seminar. Well, we've done a few seminars with Sam, like online. Really, really great mind for like everything. Like he's got loads of ideas. Like the feedback he'll give you on stuff is stuff you'd be like, I would never have even thought of that, but it makes so much sense. So I'd get him in there so I could team with him, but also so that he could like tell me what to do, like where I can improve. And then probably would need to say Andy or he'll kick me out of school. So I'll go Andy as well.
Brilliant. Favorite TV match, your favorite match you've seen all time on the telly?
So favorite match of all time is Steve Corino versus Dusty Rhodes.
Okay.
In a Texas bull rope match from ECW Living Dangerously 2000.
Nice.
I saw like so we had like a cable box, but we didn't have like all the channels, and you'd get like ECW TV on it sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like at times where I should have been in bed, but I was like staying up and skipping past the channels and watching things when I shouldn't. I saw like the build up to that match, and then I saw like the aftermath of that match, but I couldn't see the match because the match was on pay-per-view. So I like did tape trading through the back of wrestling magazines from like the age of like 10. Pretending I was like this 30-year-old, like tape trading. So I had to like pay someone to send me a videotape they had recorded of the match to watch it eventually. But yeah, like that's my favorite match of all time.
Brilliant. Final question: what would be your dream arena to work in?
Dream actual like wrestling arena would be the ECW arena.
Okay.
But if I could wrestle anywhere, it would be at one of the ballrooms in Blackpool.
Okay.
During they do this thing called Rebellion Festival, which is like a punk festival that's held during the summer. That's on one of my goals. Like I really want to be able to like say I've had a wrestling match at Rebellion Festival, because they don't do anything like that, but like that's my sort of like scene, and like I love going down there. So like to have like a match while that's going on and just like a crowd of like punks, that's I think that'd be like the dream.
Brilliant. Brent, it's been an absolute pleasure to you on the show. Thank you very much for joining me, and best of luck for the rest of your career.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
Thanks, mate.